Nielsen methodology change. A key factor in 2025 is a change in Nielsen's methodology to include big data plus panel, which incorporates out-of-home viewing, a change that generally results in higher reported viewership for all sports broadcasts compared to previous years. Critics argue that some reported year-over-year growth may be partially attributable to this methodological change, which is not always clearly noted in press releases, of course, not noted in this year's press.
Many began to question whether the record was as genuine as it appeared. The confusion only deepened after noticing ESPN's reference to an upgrade in methodology. Buried in the fine print was a mention of the Big Data plus Nielsen system, a new measurement model introduced earlier in the year that broadened the definition of viewership. This system included out-of-home audiences, people who might have caught a brief glimpse of the game in bars, gyms, airports, or even store displays. In other words, under this new method, anyone merely near a screen could be counted as a viewer.
Go listen to sports radio. I'm not getting any WNBA finals. I'll turn on ESPN. I'm not getting any WNBA finals. I'll turn on Fox Sports 1. I'm not getting any WNBA finals. Nowhere I look do I see people really discussing the WNBA finals. And ESPN spits out 1.9 million viewers. Are these silent viewers? They very well.
In other words, these figures weren't necessarily measuring dedicated home viewers, they were counting any set of eyes that happened to glance at a screen. Much of this viewership was passive rather than engaged. That revelation changed everything. What ESPN had celebrated as a record night was starting to look more like a statistical illusion. The host of the Bendo podcast captured the public's skepticism perfectly, asking, if millions watched, why is no one talking about it? That question summed up the sentiment across social media. The supposed surge in ratings didn't add up.
How does it happen when literally nobody is talking about the actual
The WNBA has spent years fighting for mainstream recognition, and at last, the league had a success story to celebrate. But behind the smiles and press releases, skepticism began to build. If this truly was the most watched finals opener since 1997, why did it feel like no one had actually noticed? The so-called record was starting to look less like a triumph of fan engagement and more like a product of data manipulation disguised as progress. As fans began asking questions, the story unraveled even faster.
Waiting for the official Nielsen ratings, ESPN likes to do some funny math. You can't find those numbers anywhere else. Every AI lists ESPN as the source, not Nielsen. Last time I checked, ESPN isn't in the ratings business. They're reporting their own ratings. Why did it take so long to put this out? I'm suspicious. Amazing for a game that couldn't even sell out.
If the WNBA finals really drew nearly 2 million viewers, where was the excitement afterward? Fans couldn't stop asking that question. Normally, when a sporting event breaks ratings records, the response is immediate. Social media buzzes with highlights, sports shows debate the results non-stop, and news outlets run follow-up coverage. But this time, there was nothing. Silence was deafening. Major networks didn't seem interested in celebrating their own supposed success. No viral clips, no trending hashtags, no debate segments. It felt like a record that existed only on paper. As one sports podcast host put it, he hadn't heard a single mention of the finals, not on ESPN, Fox Sports, or even Twitter feeds that usually shared WNBA content. Even die-hard fans weren't talking about it. That disconnect fueled growing skepticism. If it was such a breakthrough, why didn't it feel like one? Comparisons to other sports made the situation worse. The MLB playoffs, college football, and even NASCAR races generated far more visible conversation, despite drawing similar or lower ratings. That raised a key question: were millions of people truly watching the WNBA finals, or were the numbers inflated? Analysts soon pointed to a missing piece: transparency. ESPN's report cited Nielsen data, but no independent Nielsen release was made public. Instead, the network highlighted its own internal analytics and a new Big Data Plus methodology. That raised eyebrows because ESPN isn't just a broadcaster, It has a financial stake in the WNBA's success. More buzz means higher ad revenue and a stronger brand. Online communities quickly noticed the inconsistencies. Reddit threads mocked the idea of phantom viewers, joking that millions supposedly watched the finals but somehow left no trace online. Others compared it to overhyped movie box office reports, where the marketing outpaces reality. The term manufactured success began circulating in sports circles. As the skepticism deepened, a clearer picture emerged. In early 2025, Nielsen had quietly rolled out its Big Data Plus panel, a system that broadened the definition of viewership. The update counted not only people actively watching at home, but also out-of-home audiences, those who might see a few seconds of the game in bars, airports, gyms, or restaurants. In some cases, if you simply walked past a TV showing the game, you could be counted as a viewer. The change inflated ratings across all sports, but the WNBA benefited the most, given its hunger for proof of momentum. What ESPN and the league celebrated as a historic breakthrough was, in reality, a reflection of this expanded counting method, not necessarily a surge in fan interest. Critics called it statistical inflation, comparing it to adding steroids to ratings. Even loyal supporters began to question whether the league's growth was organic or engineered. The timing didn't help. The system update arrived just before the finals, and only ESPN seemed eager to trumpet the results. Industry insiders explained that the new model merges small sample data from traditional homes with digital signals from streaming services and smart TVs. The problem, they noted, is that it tends to overestimate engagement, especially for niche sports. For instance, 20 people in a bar could all be counted as viewers, even if only one was actually watching.